All right, so good morning. Welcome to Geometry. Today's April 28th. As a reminder, if you have a pencil or to have a pencil and paper ready just for notes, which you've been really good about. And then remember that we have office hours in case I'm not able to ask any or answer any of your questions. As usual, let's do our stress check. So if you can type into the chat box how you're feeling on a level from 0 to 10. So 0 being that you're in a good space and you can focus. A 10 being that you can't manage your emotions or behaviors right now. And then maybe somewhere in the middle, I'll go ahead and type in my number in the chat box as well. But if you can go ahead and do it, that'd be awesome. It helps me de-stress. I like to find something fun to do, and that usually helps my numbers go down a little bit lower when I read or when I do something I like to do, like watch TV, etc. All right, so let's look at our objectives for today. We will review the circumference of a circle, and then we'll find the area of a quadrilateral. So I wanted us to review something we reviewed for our first question for our do now. It's something that we did our first semester probably at the very beginning, where we found a missing angle. So when we're looking at a question like number 1, if you can, in the chat box, I'd like for you to go ahead and type how many degrees all of this would be. Oh, there you go. So this whole thing, how many degrees is that equal to? And then while you go ahead and do that, actually I'll wait, let's see. So how many degrees is that equal to? And then as you look at that, our options, I'll give you the 2 options. So our option 1 would be, because I know this was a while ago, our options would be either 180 degrees or 90 degrees. So out of those 2, you can type into the chat box which one you believe it is. And that's going to help you with solving your first question on your do now. So once you go back into Schoology and you complete that do now, this is that first question. So based on that, you'll take whichever one of the 2 you think it is. Okay, so I'll put a blank spot there. And then when you're gonna make that equal to these 2 angles, x plus 118 degrees, because those 2 should be adding up to either 180 degrees or 90 degrees, depending on which one you think it is. So I'm going to go ahead and answer that question. So out of the 2, it would be, and hopefully, I know you didn't get a chance to type it into the chat box, but hopefully this is something you were able to answer either in your head or maybe on your paper. It would be 180 degrees. Okay. And because all of this is 180 degrees, so when you put both of these angles together, that's 180. X plus 118 should be equal to 180. So how do I find what my X is going to be? Because this is addition, we go back to solving for equations, which we did in Algebra 1. You subtract 118 from each side. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other side. And that leaves you with, if I go ahead and do all of that, 10 minus 8 is 2, 7 minus 1 is 6. That cancels. Well, 1 minus 1 is 0, so that leaves us with 62 degrees. So this angle is 62 degrees. When we look at question 2, so find the circumference of the circle. So this is something we reviewed last week, where our circumference is equal to pi times d, so diameter, or circumference is equal to 2 pi r. In this case, we're given our radius because remember that a diameter goes all the way through. So we can either use this or we can figure out what our diameter is. I personally like to figure out what my diameter is. So I know that if this is 4 feet, if I were to continue it all the way through, that's another 4 feet. And I know 4 plus 4 is 8 feet. So now I plug it into my formula. Circumference is equal to pi times 8. Again, diameters. And if I go ahead and type that into a calculator, or I type that into my phone's calculator, I type in pi as 3.14 and I multiply that by 8, and that's equal to 25.12 feet. And make sure to include the unit. As a reminder, circumference is the length or the distance around the circle. All right, so our word problem that we're going to be looking at for today, and whatever we learn today applies to this problem. So the problem is that Ms. Ventura wants to cover, so I want to cover the square bulletin board in her classroom with fabric. So there's a picture of the square bulletin board. She measured the bottom edge of the bulletin board to be 4 feet long. How many square feet of fabric should Ms. Ventura buy? So all I know is that the bottom, so whenever we're doing a word problem, if I were to go through the 3 reads, and even if we don't go through the 3 reads the way we would do it in class, I might still do it in my head. So the first time I read it, I think about, what is this problem about? Right away, I know that it's about me wanting to buy fabric for my square bulletin board. Now, in my head, I would go ahead and read it a second time. And then this time I ask, what math information do they give me? So based on this problem, they tell me that the bottom edge is 4 feet long. So right away, I like to take notes. So I know that this bottom edge is 4 feet. That's the only thing that they give me in terms of math information. And my third one is, well, how do I solve this problem? Or what questions can I ask? Here they ask me, how many square feet of fabric should Ms. Ventura buy? So that's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to cover this whole bulletin board with fabric, and I just need to figure out how much fabric do I need to cover the full bulletin board. So in order to solve this problem, I need to know what area is. Okay. I'm gonna pause real quick with the record. Okay, perfect, thank you. I saw your response, thank you for that. When it comes to area, so the area of a shape is a measure of how much surface a shape takes up. So for example, if we look at these rugs, which one covers a larger surface? So which one covers a larger area, a larger surface? So one way we can do this is by counting the units inside the rug. So notice that they're all the same size, the little squares inside each rug. So if I were to count each one, I know that this has 4 going this way and 4 going this way. So 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 4 is 12, plus another 4. I know that this has a total of 16 units. Okay. With this one, it's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. This one covers 18 units. Well, that would be units squared. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this goes by 5s, 5s, 10, 15. This would cover 15. So based on these numbers, we can see that rug B covers the most surface, or covers a larger surface. Okay? Our second place would be rug A. Our third place would be rug C. And sometimes we can't tell by just looking at the image or looking at the rugs. So instead we would go ahead and try to figure out what is our area. But thank you for letting us know. All right, so when we look at rectangles, hopefully you've seen this in the past at some point, that the area of a rectangle is given as length times width. So we have length times width. So to find the area, you multiply those two sides. So the area of a rectangle is measured in square units. So for example, we can use millimeters squared. So notice where it says, where's my, give me 1 second. So we have, oh no, the video is frozen. Okay. Okay, so Okay, Miss Ross, I'm going to keep going with the lesson, but can you maybe type to him
Okay.
and just let him know that, again, just that the video will be up, but if he can just, I guess,
Okay.
keep trying, or maybe a different place in his, where he lives. I'm not sure. I know that might be difficult, but just some response so he knows that that we saw his chat.
Okay.
But okay, so for example, we can use millimeters squared, centimeters squared, meters squared, kilometers squared, but notice something that they all have in common. They have that squared written in. This tells us that there are two dimensions, length and width. We can find the area of a rectangle by multiplying the length and width of a rectangle together. So you multiply those two and those give you your area. Okay, I see, Victor, you're there. Okay. So what is the area of this rectangle? You would take for area of your rectangle, you would take your length times width. So if we look at this, we can say that the length times width is 4. Oh. We can call this length, we can call this width. 4 times 8. I know that 4 times 8 is 32, but then I want to make sure to put the units. My units are centimeters. And remember, whenever you do area, only area, not with perimeter, only area, we do that. We put a square. Now let's say we're finding the perimeter. Remember that perimeter is when you add up all the sides. We know that this is 8 centimeters. This is 4 centimeters. If I were to do perimeter, I would do 8 plus 4 plus 8 plus 4. I know that 8 plus 4 is 12, and that's another 12. That's equal to 24 centimeters. So notice I didn't put squared for perimeter. I only put that for area. Now with squares, the area of a square is given as area is also length times width, but with a square, sometimes they'll only give you one side. For a square, they might say the area of a square is 2 inches. And that's all they might tell you. The reason that they tell you that is because they know that you know that in a square, all sides are the same. Okay? So in a square, all sides measure the same thing. So this is 2 inches. This is also 2 inches. That is also 2 inches. And this is 2 inches. So if the area of a square is still length times width, this is my length. This is my width. So my area would be 2, which is my length, times my width, which is 2. And that's equal to 4 inches squared. And that's going to be helpful for us when we go back to solving our problem, our board problem. So now this is where it starts getting a little bit more challenging because we take the basic knowledge of area and then we go ahead and we put it all together and we solve problems like this one. So when we're looking at a shape like this, finding perimeter is easy because we just add up all the sides, but for area, we actually have to split up the shape into 2. So I'm going to go ahead and split it up this way. Okay. So I know that my, we can call this my width, is going to be for this shape is 7 centimeters. And we also know that my length for this shape, only going up to this line, can be this. Oh wait, sorry, length. I meant length. So when we multiply for our area for this shape, it's going to be length times width. I know my length is 10 meters. My width is 7 meters. That's equal to 70 meters squared. And then when I go ahead and look at my B, so I know that how long is this shape, or the width? The width is 15 meters. It's all of this. How long is it? It's 5 meters. So again, I also do area is equal to length times width. So I know that my length is 5, my width is 15. When I go ahead and multiply that, that is 75 meters squared. So I know that the area for shape A is equal to 70 meters squared. I know my area of shape B is 75 meters squared. So if I want to know how much all of it is, I just add those two numbers up. And that gives me 145 meters squared. That is the area of the full shape. When finding the area of a shape like this, I first find the area of well, they only want the shaded shape, so only everything in orange. But first we find the area of the main shape. So this is my length, that's my width. Area is equal to length times width. That's equal to 7 times 8. 7 times 8 is equal to 56. That's 56 centimeters squared. Now my area for shape B is also length times width, but this time my length is 3, my width is 4. So I go 3 times 4. That's equal to 12 centimeters squared. But this time notice that they're taking that piece out, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and this time I'm gonna take my area for the first shape, which was 56 centimeters. And because they take that part out, they want you to remove it, I subtract by 12 centimeters squared. And that gives me 44 centimeters squared as my answer. All right, so going back to our question, Ms. Matera wants to cover the square bulletin board in her classroom with fabric. She measured the bottom edge of the bulletin board to be 4 feet long. How many square feet of fabric should she buy? I know that it's a square shape. And I also know that this is going to be 4 feet. Remember that a square, each side is sorry, there's a lot of noise in the background. Hopefully you can't hear that too much. Each side is 4 feet. Because if the bottom is 4 feet, remember that it's squared, all sides are the same. So this is my length, that's my width. Area is equal to length times width, meaning 4 times 4. I know 4 times 4 is equal to 16, and my units are feet squared. So that is my answer. I need 16 feet squared of fabric. Now this we're not gonna do, but if you do want in the chat box, what does this mean? So guessing what the emoji is, what would that represent? And our next step, so make sure to complete the do now, make sure to complete the exit ticket. But we do have another assignment I need you to do as soon as you get a chance to. And complete the do now.